The strange request it was a quiet night. The kind of night where the streets looked empty and tired. A single man sat at the corner of a small food stall. Eating slowly, he was not rich, he was not poor. He was just another man passing through the city. The steam from his hot meal rose into the cold air, and for a while he thought he was alone. Then he heard voices, soft and shaky. He turned his head, and there they were, 4 children standing in the shadows. They looked weak, their faces pale, their clothes old and strange. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a quiet voice. "Can we have your leftovers?" The man froze, his spoon still in his hand. He looked at them carefully, their small hands pressed together as if begging. They were thin, far too thin for children their age. But it was not their hunger that shocked him. It was their eyes. Their eyes were not normal. In the dim light of the street, their eyes glowed a soft, cold blue. Not like the blue of the ocean, not like the blue of the sky. This was a glow, faint but steady, as if a hidden light was living inside them. The man felt his heartbeat quicken. He wanted to believe it was a trick of the light. Maybe the street lamp above him was broken, but when the children blinked, the glow remained. They stared at him, waiting for his answer. For a moment he said nothing. He thought about running. He thought about shouting. But then he saw how small they were, how their shoulders shook from hunger. Whatever they were still children. Slowly, he pushed his plate forward. "You can eat," he said, his voice shaking more than he expected. The children stepped closer, their feet making no sound against the ground. They sat down quickly and began to eat. The man watched. Every bite they took made their blue eyes glow a little brighter. It was not just hunger, it was something else. He noticed their clothes now, not normal clothes at all. The fabric looked thin and silver, almost like it had come from somewhere far away. He asked them quietly, "Where are your parents?" None of them answered. They kept eating, their faces calm but their silence heavy. Only one of the younger ones looked at him and smiled. A strange smile that felt both kind and secret. The night around them seemed to grow colder. The street was silent. No cars passed, no people walked by. It was just him and these children with glowing eyes. He felt as if the world outside had disappeared, leaving only this strange moment. The man rubbed his hands together, trying to hide his unease. Something about them was not right, but something also pulled at his heart. They were lost, they were hungry, but why did they look so different? Why did their eyes glow brighter with every piece of food? Finally, one child whispered something. It was not in his language, not in any language he had ever heard. A soft string of words that sounded musical but strange. The others nodded as if they understood. He leaned forward. "What did you say?" The children looked at him, but none of them answered. Instead, they finished the last of the food and sat quietly, their blue eyes glowing brighter than before. Casting a faint light on the table, the man felt his throat dry. He had so many questions, but fear held them back. He wanted to know who they were, where they came from, and why they were here. But all he could do was stare, the air filled with a soft hum. Low and steady, he looked around trying to find the source. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The children did not react. As if they were used to it then for the first time. He wondered if they were human at all. The thought chilled him, yet it also pulled him deeper into the mystery. He remembered the question they had asked him. So polite, so simple. "Can we have your leftovers?" It had sounded innocent, but now with their glowing eyes and strange silence, it felt like the beginning of something much larger, something he could not understand yet, something that might change his life forever. He leaned back in his chair. His eyes locked on theirs. The children sat still, their blue eyes glowing like small stars. And in that moment, the man realized he was no longer hungry. Instead, he was afraid and he was curious, both at the same time. The night around them felt alive. The shadows stretched longer. The hum grew louder. The man took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves, but deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The children were not ordinary, and by giving them his food, he had stepped into their world. A world that was waiting in the dark, and now it had found him. The unusual children. The children sat quietly after finishing the last bite of food. Their glowing eyes flickered softly like tiny blue lanterns in the dark. The man leaned forward. Trying to read their faces, they looked calm, almost too calm for children who had been starving. One of the older children wiped the table with the edge of his sleeve, as if trying to be polite. Another folded the empty paper plate neatly, pressing it flat with careful hands. Their movements were strange, slow, and precise. Not clumsy like normal children. It was almost as if they were copying human behavior rather than living it. The man cleared his throat, his voice low. "Where do you come from?" The children turned their heads toward him at the same time, perfectly together. It was not a natural reaction, it was too exact, too controlled. For a moment he felt a shiver climb up his spine. No answer came, only silence. Then the youngest one, a girl with tangled hair and the brightest eyes of all, leaned closer. Her lips moved, but the words were quiet, broken and strange, not from here, she whispered, her voice barely louder than the wind. The man froze. He wanted to ask again, but his mouth felt dry. The three older children looked at the girl, as if she had spoken too much. They touched her hand quickly, shaking their heads. Something in that simple gesture told him the truth. They were hiding something far bigger than hunger. He could see it in their glowing eyes, in their silence, in the way they kept watching the shadows, as if they were afraid of being found. The man glanced around. The street was still empty. But now he noticed small details he had missed before. The flickering lights above seemed weaker, as if their glow had been drained, and that strange low hum still hung in the air, quiet but steady. He rubbed his arms. The night felt colder than before. The children did not seem cold, though their clothes were thin. Their silver-like fabric shimmered faintly, reflecting light that wasn't even there. It looked fragile, but somehow stronger than anything he had ever seen. The man leaned closer, whispering, "You don't belong here, do you?" The children stayed silent. Their glowing eyes locked on him. They did not nod. They did not shake their heads. But in their silence, he already had his answer. The youngest child broke the stillness again. Her voice was trembling but filled with strange weight. Hungry, always hungry," she said, her words soft and broken. "Food makes us stronger, keeps us here." The man felt his stomach twist. Keeps us here? What did that mean? Were they sick, trapped, or something else entirely? He wanted to ask, but before he could, the oldest child placed a hand flat on the table. His fingers were long and thin, almost too thin when they touched the wood. The table gave off a faint vibration. The man blinked, unsure if it was real or if fear was making him imagine things. But he knew then that whatever these children were, they were not normal. A gust of wind blew through the street, scattering paper and dust. The sound of the hum grew louder for a moment, then faded again. The children looked around quickly, their glowing eyes scanning the darkness. The man noticed it was not hunger in their gaze anymore, it was fear. "What are you afraid of?" he asked. The children did not answer. Instead, the oldest one made a soft motion with his hand, as if telling the others to stay quiet. Then he looked at the man and spoke for the first time. His voice was calm but heavy, like someone much older than a child. "They are looking for us," he said. The man's chest tightened. "Who?" The child's glowing eyes narrowed. "People not like you." "Different people." The man leaned back, his mind racing. If someone was looking for them, it meant they were being hunted, and if they were being hunted, it meant someone already knew they were here. The question was why. The children sat close together now, their shoulders touching. They whispered to one another in that strange musical language. The sound was soft but sharp, almost like chimes breaking in the wind. The man felt like an outsider, a stranger staring into a secret he wasn't supposed to see. He thought about leaving, about walking away from all of this. But when he looked at them again, small and fragile in the cold night, he couldn't, even if they were strange. Even if they weren't human, they were still just children. The youngest girl looked at him again, her glowing eyes softer this time. "You help us?" she asked, her voice almost begging. The man's heart pounded. He didn't know what he was agreeing to, but he nodded slowly, unable to say no. The children leaned closer as if comforted by his answer, their glowing eyes reflected in the glass of the food stall window. 4 bright blue lights staring back at him like stars in the dark, and deep inside the man knew his life had just changed. The night no longer felt empty. Something powerful was moving in the shadows, something he could not yet see. And with every second that passed, the mystery around the children grew deeper. They were not just hungry. They were something else entirely. The man sat still, his chest heavy with fear and curiosity. The children whispered again in their strange tongue, their glowing eyes brighter than ever. The hum in the air pulsed softly, like a heartbeat echoing in the dark. And in that moment he understood. He was not the one watching them. They were the ones who had chosen him. And whatever was coming next, he could no longer walk away. The warning signs, the man sat with the children, his thoughts spinning like a storm. They had asked for food. They had eaten it with strange calm, and their glowing eyes had grown brighter. But now something else was happening. Something he could not explain. The night was too quiet. The sound of the city, usually filled with distant cars, barking dogs, and random footsteps, was gone. It felt as if the world outside had pressed pause, leaving only him and these strange children. Even the air felt heavier, thick with something unseen. Then came the lights. The street lamp above them flickered once, twice, and then burned low. The hum in the air returned, deeper this time, like a machine running underground. The man looked around, but there was nothing there. No wires, no generators, no reason for the sound. The children did not seem surprised. They only glanced at the weak lamp and then back at the man, their glowing eyes steady as if this was normal for them, as if they had lived with such things all their lives. The man felt sweat on his forehead. He whispered, "What is happening?" The youngest girl tilted her head, her blue eyes glowing soft but strong. "You feel it too," she said in her broken voice. "It follows us. Always." The oldest boy turned sharply toward the dark end of the street. He stood still, eyes locked on the shadows. The man followed his gaze but saw nothing. Yet something in his gut told him there was something out there. Watching, waiting. The silver fabric of their clothes shimmered faintly. It was not just light reflecting. It was like the fabric itself was alive. Every time the hum grew stronger, their clothes pulsed faintly, almost breathing. The man's chest tightened. He was sitting across from beings he did not understand. The children spoke softly to each other again in that strange musical language. It sounded faster this time, urgent like whispers of warning. The man leaned forward, trying to catch even one familiar word. But it was useless. Their language was not from here, not from anywhere he knew. He tried to stay calm, but his hands shook under the table. He whispered, "Why are you here? Who is looking for you?" The oldest boy turned back to him, his glowing eyes cold and sharp. "They want us gone," he said flatly. "They do not want us to stay." The man frowned. "Who?" But the boy didn't answer. Instead, the three older children lowered their heads slightly, as if sensing something coming closer. The youngest girl clutched the man's sleeve gently, her hand cold like ice. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed in the distance. It sounded like metal twisting, breaking under heavy weight. The man's heart jumped. He looked down the street, but it was empty. The children stayed still, their glowing eyes locked forward. Not blinking, another sound followed. A faint clicking noise like claws tapping on glass. The man's breath caught. Every part of him screamed to run, but the children did not move. They were listening, waiting. Finally, the oldest boy spoke again. "Not safe here," the man swallowed hard. "Not safe?" Then where? Before he could finish, the food stall lights went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. The only light left was the glow from the children's eyes. 4 bright blue flames in the night. The hum grew louder now, filling the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. It was not the hum of machines anymore. It was something alive. The man pressed his palms against the table, trying to keep steady. "What is that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The youngest girl answered softly, "They are close." The man's chest pounded. "Who are they?" The girl didn't reply. Her eyes only glowed brighter. The 3 older children placed their hands on the table at the same time. The wood vibrated under their touch. A faint pattern of glowing lines spread across the surface. Like cracks of blue fire, the man gasped and pulled back, staring at the strange marks. The children watched calmly, their faces unreadable. "This is wrong," the man muttered, his voice weak. He wanted to walk away, but his legs felt heavy. He knew if he left, something would follow, something worse than his fear. And part of him already knew. These children were in danger, and now so was he. The clicking sound returned, closer this time, echoing off the buildings. The man whipped his head toward the noise. For a second, he thought he saw a shadow move across the wall, thin and fast, but when he blinked, it was gone. The children whispered again, their voices sharp, hurried. The glow in their eyes pulsed like a heartbeat. The youngest girl tugged at his sleeve once more, whispering, "Stay close. Stay with us." Her voice was both a warning and a promise. The man looked at her, and for the first time, he saw something deeper in her eyes, Not just hunger, not just fear, but sadness. A sadness so deep it made his chest ache. He realized then, they had been running for a long time. The hum reached its peak, buzzing through the air like thunder trapped underground. The lights on the street snapped once more. Then all went dark again. The clicking noise stopped, replaced by silence. A silence so heavy it pressed against his ears. The children sat still, glowing, silent, waiting. The man held his breath, afraid to break the stillness. He knew this was not the end of the danger. It was only the first warning. And whatever was coming would not stop until it found them. The secret revealed, the silence was heavy, pressing against the man's ears. The children sat still, their glowing blue eyes fixed on the darkness. The man's breath came slow and uneven, his heart pounding. He could feel it. Something was out there. Watching, waiting, then without warning the hum faded. The clicking sound disappeared. The night grew quiet again. It was almost worse than the noise because silence meant the danger was close but unseen. The oldest child finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "They know where we are," he said. The man swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Who knows? Who is following you?" The boy's glowing eyes did not blink. "The hunters." The word made the man's skin crawl. Hunters. Who hunts children? He wanted to believe this was some strange story, a nightmare he would wake from. But the glowing eyes staring back at him told him this was real. The youngest girl reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cold, colder than night air. When she spoke, her voice trembled. "We ran from them, we hide. But they always find us," her words broke apart. But her fear was clear. The man leaned closer, whispering, "Why are they hunting you?" "What are you?" The children exchanged a glance, silent for a long moment. Then the boy nodded slowly, as if deciding it was time to tell him the truth. He placed his thin hand on the table again. The glowing marks returned, faint blue lines spreading like veins of light. The man stared, his chest tight with fear and wonder. The boy looked into his eyes and said, "We are not from this world." The man froze. His heart thudded once, hard, then faster. He wanted to laugh, to deny, but deep inside he already knew. He had known from the moment he saw their glowing eyes. "We came from far away," the boy continued, his voice heavy for a child. "Our ship was broken. We fell here." "We did not choose," the girl whispered softly. "We only wanted to live." Her eyes glowed brighter with every word. The man's hands trembled on the table. Aliens, children from another world sitting before him. Eating his leftovers, it sounded impossible. But the truth was glowing right in front of him, and he could no longer deny it. He leaned back, his chair creaking. "Why come here? Why Earth?" he asked. The children looked at each other as if searching for the right words. Finally, the boy said, "We were looking for home." The words struck the man deep. They were not invaders, not conquerors, just lost children searching for a place to belong. But the hunters, they must have been following them from the sky. Or maybe they were humans who had discovered them and wanted them gone. The girl's voice broke his thoughts. "Our ship hides broken, waiting for us," she said. "It sleeps. But we cannot wake it," the boy added. "We need energy, we need strength. But we are weak," the man frowned. "Energy? You mean food?" The children nodded slowly, their glowing eyes pulsing faintly. "Your food gives us life," the girl said. "It keeps us here. Keeps us alive." Her words echoed in the quiet street. Heavy and strange, the man's chest tightened. So that was why they were hungry. Not for taste, not for comfort, but because human food gave them power. Without it, they would fade, disappear, maybe even die. He stared at them, his mind spinning. 4 alien children, stranded, hunted, starving. And now they were sitting with him, asking for his help. He didn't know if he should run or protect them. The oldest boy's voice cut through his storm of thoughts. "You helped us, so now we tell you," he said. "But help is dangerous. Very dangerous." His glowing eyes hardened. "If you stay with us, the hunters will come for you too." The man's stomach twisted. He thought of his small, quiet life, the safety of being nobody. He thought of the hunters, whoever they were, waiting in the shadows. And then he thought of these children, alone, afraid, yet still alive. The youngest girl leaned forward again, her voice almost breaking. "Please do not leave us," she whispered. Her glowing blue eyes filled with something more human than alien. Hope. The man felt his chest ache, his fear wrestling with his heart. He wanted to say no, to walk away, but he could not after seeing them. Not after hearing their truth. They were children, even if not human, and they needed him. The man finally spoke, his voice low. "Where's your ship?" The boy's eyes glowed brighter. "Not far," he said, "but dangerous. The hunters wait." He looked toward the dark street, his face sharp with fear and strength. The man took a deep breath, his hands shaking. He had stepped into something far bigger than himself. But it was too late to turn back. He had given them food, and now he had taken their secret. The children leaned closer, their glowing eyes burning like stars. The girl whispered one last time, her voice soft but heavy, "If you help us reach our ship, we can go home." Her words carried both hope and warning. The man stared at them, his heart racing. He knew his life had changed forever. The question was not if danger would come. It was when, and now he was no longer just a witness. He was part of their story, the connection. The man sat frozen, the children's glowing eyes locked on his. He had heard their secret. He had felt their fear, and now he had to decide. He could walk away and pretend this night never happened. Or he could stay and help them, even if it cost him everything. The youngest girl still held his sleeve, her small hand cold against his skin. "Please," she whispered again, her voice fragile. "Do not leave us." The man's heart twisted. He saw not aliens, not strangers, but lost children, alone in a world that did not want them, hunted by forces he could not even imagine. He took a deep breath, his voice shaking. "I will help you." The children's eyes glowed brighter, their faces softening. For the first time he saw relief in them. It was small, but it was real. The oldest boy nodded, his voice calm. "Then we are not alone." The man almost laughed at the words, bitter and strange because he had been alone for so long, walking through life unnoticed now in one night. He had found the most dangerous company of all. They sat together in silence for a while. The hum in the air had faded, the clicking sounds were gone. But the man knew it was only for now. The hunters were still out there, and sooner or later they would return. He leaned forward, whispering, "Tell me about your ship." The children exchanged looks. Then the boy spoke slowly. "It sleeps under the earth. Broken, waiting," he said. "We must wake it, but we are weak. Food gives us power." "But not enough." The man frowned. "What kind of food?" The girl whispered. "All food. Your food is energy. It burns inside us. Keeps us alive." The man thought about his plate. Simple rice and meat, nothing special, nothing powerful. Yet it had lit their eyes like fire. The children drew closer, their voices low. The boy said, "When we eat, we are stronger, faster, but still small. Still hunted." The man's mind spun. If simple food gave them strength, what else could they do? He wondered what power they were hiding. What power the hunters feared? The youngest girl smiled faintly, though it was filled with sadness. "You are kind," she said softly. "Not like others. Others chase us away, throw stones, call us ghosts." The man's chest ached. He could almost see it. These children wandering streets, begging for scraps only to be pushed away, feared for their glowing eyes. He sighed. "People fear what they do not understand." The boy tilted his head, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Do you fear us?" The man paused, the question heavy finally. He answered, "Yes, but I will still help you." For a moment, none of them spoke. Then slowly the boy's lips curved into the smallest smile. It was not warm, it was not full, but it was the first sign of trust, and in that smile, the man felt a strange connection. The girl leaned closer again, whispering, "We trust you." The word sent a shiver through him because trust meant responsibility, and responsibility meant danger, but he could not pull away now. He stood slowly, glancing at the empty street. "Show me where," he said, his voice firm. "Show me your ship." The children looked at him, their glowing eyes flickering like candlelight. Then the boy nodded. "But we must move carefully. The hunters may see." They left the stall, moving through the shadows of the city. The children walked close to him, their steps silent, almost floating. Every few moments the boy would stop and listen, his glowing eyes scanning the dark. The man felt his skin prickle, as if unseen eyes followed them from every corner. The streets grew quieter the farther they went. Buildings turned older, darker, walls covered with broken windows and peeling paint. It was the part of the city where no one cared to go, the perfect place to hide something that did not belong. The girl walked beside him, her hand brushing his arm. "You help us." "We help you," she whispered. The man glanced at her. "Help me? How?" She only smiled, her glowing eyes full of something unreadable. He thought of his life, small, ordinary, lonely, every day the same. Every night silent, and now here he was walking with children not from this world. It was madness, yet for the first time he felt alive. The boy stopped suddenly, raising his hand. They all froze, the air grew colder. From the distance came a low rumble like engines hidden underground. The man held his breath, fear crawling up his spine. The boy whispered, "Not the ship, the hunters." The children gathered close, their glowing eyes brighter in the dark. The girl grabbed the man's hand tightly, whispering, "Stay with us. Do not let go." Her words carried weight, as if letting go meant more than just losing touch. The man nodded, his voice stuck in his throat. For the first time, he realized this was no longer about choice. He had already crossed the line. He was with them now, and whatever hunted them hunted him too. The children moved quickly, guiding him through narrow alleys. The sound of the hunters grew louder behind them, engines humming, shadows shifting, but the children did not panic. Their steps were precise, their whispers sharp. They had been running for a long time, and they knew how to survive at last. They stopped before a rusted gate leading to an abandoned factory. The boy pushed it open with ease, though it looked too heavy for him. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the walls covered in shadows, and in the farthest corner, buried under broken steel, something faintly glowed. The man's eyes widened. There it was, the ship, silent, broken, waiting, and for the first time he truly believed. The abandoned factory was silent. Dust covered the floor. Broken machines stood like skeletons in the dark, and in the corner, half buried under steel beams, the ship waited, its surface faintly glowing, breathing like a creature in sleep. The man stared at it, his chest tight. It was not large, not like the ships from movies. It looked small, almost delicate, its body silver and smooth. But there was something powerful about it, something alive. The children stepped closer, their glowing eyes reflecting off the broken walls. The youngest girl touched the ship with her hand. The glow pulsed brighter for a moment, as if recognizing her, then faded again, sinking back into silence. "It is weak," the boy said, his voice flat. "We cannot wake it alone," the man whispered. "What does it need?" The boy turned to him. Time, energy, and protection. Before the man could ask more, a new sound cut through the night, engines low and steady. Rolling closer, the children froze. Their glowing eyes wide, the boy whispered one word, sharp and cold, "Hunters." The man's heart jumped. Headlights swept across the broken windows. Dark shapes moved outside, heavy boots crunching against gravel. Voices shouted in harsh tones, too far to hear clearly but close enough to fear. The girl clutched the man's arm, whispering, "They found us." The boy's glowing eyes hardened. "We must move." The man looked at the ship, broken and helpless. "How?" "You said it cannot fly." The boy turned to him, his voice steady. "We do not run forever, we fight." The words sent a shiver through the man. Fight. They were just children, fragile and thin. But then he remembered. The table glowing under their touch. The way light pulsed in their eyes. The boots outside grew louder, closer. A heavy crash echoed as the gate to the factory was kicked open. Flashlights cut through the dark. Beams of white slicing the shadows. The hunters had arrived. The children pressed close together, their glowing eyes burning brighter. The youngest girl whispered to the man, "Stay near." "Do not be afraid," her voice was calm, but her hand shook as she held his. The man tried to steady his breath, though fear burned in his chest. Figures poured into the factory, dressed in dark armor, helmets covering their faces. They moved with precision, weapons raised, lights scanning. "Find them," one voice barked, cold and sharp. The sound of boots thundered against the floor. The man ducked behind a machine, pulling the girl with him. His mind screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The children stood near the ship, their glowing eyes bright as fire, and then it happened. The boy raised his hand. The air around him shimmered, a faint blue wave spreading outward. The nearest hunter froze, his flashlight flickering. He stumbled backward as if the ground had shifted beneath him. Another hunter fired, the sound of the shot cracking through the silence. The bullet never reached them. It stopped midair, glowing faintly blue, then dropped to the ground. The man gasped, his chest pounding. The children's eyes pulsed like beating hearts. They moved together, their hands glowing faintly. Another wave of light spread outward, knocking back two hunters. Their weapons clattered to the floor, useless. The man stared in shock. They were not helpless, they were powerful. But every time they used their power, their bodies shook, their faces grew pale, their strength draining. The hunters regrouped quickly, shouting orders. More light swept across the factory, beams catching the silver ship in the corner. There, one voice roared. Dozens of boots rushed forward, weapons raised. The boy shouted in his strange language, his voice sharp like a command. The ship pulsed faintly but did not wake. The children fought again, their glowing hands pushing back the hunters. But the hunters kept coming. Wave after wave, the man's chest burned. He could not just hide. He grabbed a rusted metal pipe from the floor, his hands shaking when a hunter came too close. He swung with all his strength. The pipe cracked against armor, sending the man stumbling but the hunter falling. His arms ached, his heart raced. But for the first time he was not just a witness. He was part of the fight, and the children saw it, their glowing eyes flashing with respect. The youngest girl whispered, "You protect us." The man nodded, though fear ate at him. "Yes," he said through clenched teeth, "I will protect you." The words felt heavy but true. The hunters pressed closer, their lights blinding, their numbers endless. The children grew weaker, their glowing eyes dimming with every wave of power. The boy shouted, his voice desperate, "We cannot hold them." The girl tugged at the man's sleeve, whispering, "We must wake the ship." The man looked at the silent silver craft, its faint glow pulsed like a heartbeat, waiting. He knew it was their only chance, but how could he help? He was only a man with nothing but fear and a rusted pipe. The girl looked into his eyes, her voice trembling but strong. "You can help us." "You must," the hunters shouted again. Rushing closer, the man tightened his grip on the pipe, his heart racing. He did not know how to wake a ship from another world, but he knew one thing. He would not abandon them, not now, not ever, even if it meant standing against the hunters until his last breath. The factory shook with noise, boots, shouts, and light. The children's glowing eyes dimmed, their small bodies trembling. The man stood before them, pipe in hand, and for the first time in his life, he felt the weight of destiny. The chase was not just about running anymore, it was about surviving, about fighting. And as the hunters closed in, the man realized something powerful. This was no longer their fight alone, it was his too. The choice. The factory shook with every shout, every step of the hunters drawing closer. The children stood weak, their glowing eyes dimming, their bodies trembling from the energy they had already spent. The man held the rusted pipe in his hands, his arms heavy, but his resolve stronger than ever. He stood between the hunters and the children, his breath sharp in his chest. The silver ship glowed faintly in the shadows. It looked alive, almost awake, but not strong enough. The children turned to it with desperate eyes. The youngest girl whispered, her voice breaking, "We need more. We need you." The man blinked at her, his heart pounding. "Me? I don't know how," he whispered. The boy stepped forward, his glowing eyes serious. "You fed us, you gave us strength, you can give more." The man shook his head, fear rushing through him. "I'm just a man." "I don't have power like you." The girl touched his arm, her hand cold but steady. "You have choice. Choice is power," she said softly. The hunters drew nearer, their weapons aimed. Their lights cutting through the dark, one shouted, "Stand aside, human." "They don't belong here." The man's chest tightened, the words sharp like knives. He looked at the children, fragile yet glowing with hope. He thought of his life before this night. The loneliness, the silence, the feeling of being invisible. No one had needed him. No one had trusted him until now. The boy raised his glowing hand, pointing to the ship. "If you give what is left, the ship will wake. We can leave. We can survive." The man understood then it was not about food anymore. It was about sacrifice. He looked at the ship, silver and faintly alive. He looked at the children, their glowing blue eyes filled with trust. And then he looked at the hunters, dark and cold, stepping closer. The choice was clear. The man dropped the pipe, his hands trembling. He stepped toward the ship, the children watching silently. The hunters shouted again, rushing forward. But the boy raised his hand, sending a weak pulse of light that held them back for only seconds. The man touched the ship. It was cold at first, then warm. The glow under his fingers spread like fire. The youngest girl whispered, "Give it all." The man closed his eyes. He thought of every meal he had eaten, every breath he had taken, every moment of life he had carried. He thought of the children, lost and hunted, and how they had chosen him and he let go, a surge of energy rushed through him, pulling the strength from his body. His knees shook, his breath grew heavy. His vision blurred, the ship pulsed brighter, silver turning white, humming like a heartbeat waking. The children's eyes glowed strong again, feeding on the light pouring from the ship. The hunters shouted, firing their weapons. Bullets and beams of light struck the air, but every shot dissolved against the glowing wall that spread from the ship. The man stood at its center, his body weak but his spirit unbroken. The ship roared, alive now. Its silver body lit the factory like a second sun. The hunters stumbled back, covering their eyes. The children stepped forward, their faces calm, strong once more. The boy turned to the man, his glowing eyes softer now. "You gave us what we needed," he said. His voice deep with gratitude, the girl whispered, "We will not forget." Her small hand brushed his arm one last time. The ship opened, a door sliding wide with light spilling out. The children stepped inside, their glowing eyes watching him until the last moment. The youngest girl turned back, her voice trembling. "One day we return, and we repay." Then the door closed. Sealing them away, the man fell to his knees. His strength drained. The factory shook as the ship lifted. Rising into the air with thunder, the hunters fired again and again, but their weapons were useless against the light. The ship tore free from the broken walls and into the night sky. The man lay on the floor, his chest heaving, his vision swimming. He watched the silver craft rise higher, glowing like a star. Then it shot upward, vanishing into the endless dark. The factory fell silent once more, the hunters shouted in anger, their lights sweeping the empty air. But the children were gone, their ship beyond reach. The man smiled weakly. His body aching, he had chosen, and he had given them freedom. The hunters turned toward him, their cold eyes hidden behind masks. But when they saw the empty ship's resting place, they knew it was over. They muttered, retreated, disappearing into the shadows like smoke, leaving him alone in the broken factory. The man closed his eyes, his body heavy, but his heart was lighter than it had ever been. For once he was not invisible. For once he had mattered. The night grew quiet again. The hum was gone, the danger past, the city outside lived on, unaware of what had happened in its dark corners. But the man would never forget. He looked at the sky one last time, wondering if the children were safe, wondering if they would truly return. And deep inside he knew they would, because promises made with glowing blue eyes are never broken.